So, Senator Patrick Leahy, you may not know him. He was a famous senator. He wrote in his memoirs what had happened right before the Iraq War. Now, if you watched the News Hour back then in the year 2000, 2000 through 2005, the News Hours was actually news at that time, and you could get news. So, in the build-up to the Iraq War, the UN weapons inspectors were going in there, and the man in charge was a Swedish weapons inspector named Hans Blix. And Blix went in there and he did many interviews on the NewsHour. And he said, yeah, we can't trust the Iraqi government, but they don't have weapons of mass destruction. There's no evidence of nuclear or biological weapons there. So the pretense for war was they had weapons that could threaten the West, and that with Scud missiles from Russia, they could hit Europe. And so this was the whole pretense for the second Iraq War. Now, being an idiot, I watched the NewsHour because it was news, and I thought there's no need to go in there. Now, when I went to Washington, D.C., and I remember this clearly, being at a party in Washington, D.C., with people who should have known better. And they were talking about the Iraq War. And then I said, hey, on the NewsHour, Hans Blix, the Swedish weapons inspector, says there are no weapons of mass destruction in there. Why should we go to war? And this very condescending, NIMBYist government type said, don't you think we know better than you, Mr. Brown? Don't you think we know better? Actually, they didn't. Actually, a dumbass like me watching the NewsHour when it was really news, I could tell you there was no weapons of mass destruction there because the UN weapons inspector couldn't find any. And they had did all these tests, and they had put reports out. And this was the early days of the websites as we know it, but you could still get information, and there's nothing there. But we went to war. 1 million Iraqis got killed, destruction of a country, thousands of U.S. troops killed, trillions of dollars wasted. No one's held responsible. And now Patrick Leahy comes out and tells this kind of Jason Bourne story that he's walking with his wife in a neighborhood right before the vote for the Iraq War resolution by Congress, and two physically fit joggers come up to him and they tell him, hey, have you read the intelligence reports? And he said, yes. And then they said, he used a code term called Document 8 or something. They said, have you read Document 8? He said, no. They said, well, you better read Document 8. So they jog off, and Leahy goes in next day, requests the intelligence report, Document 8, that is being put out, and he finds out that in Document 8, it's contradicting everything the Bush administration is saying about the Iraq War. So who are these two guys? CIA, KGB, time travelers? I don't know. So he reads that, and I think a week or two goes by. He's out walking again. He's in the D.C. area. Same two joggers come running up, physically fit military types. And they said, well, did you read Document 8? And Leahy said, yeah, I did. They said, well, now you need to read Document 12. So he goes and reads Document 12, and sure enough, it contradicts everything the Bush administration is saying about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Or you could have watched the NewsHour like I did with Hans Blix, the weapons inspector, on TV telling you the same damn thing. But whatever. So Leahy votes against the Iraq War resolution. Okay. So I think, but he didn't really say anything. He just kind of voted against it, and history. So he probably put this in the memoir because, he's trying to cover his ass. I get it. And I don't dislike Leahy. He was back when politics made some kind of sense. He was a decent senator. But it's interesting that somewhere in the shadow government or the deep state or time travelers or aliens or whoever these guys were, they were coming up to him saying, hey, you need to read this because this is a dangerous situation. Now, I'm at a party in D.C. with people who should have known better, and I'm saying the same thing. I was dismissed. You just dismissed because we're going to war. We're going to go to war and kill people, Bob. Don't you understand? Yeah, I understand. 1 million people are dead for no damn reason. And by the way, not 1 ounce of their blood is on me, but there's gallons of blood on those people. So anyway, it'd be interesting also to know if other people, other senators were also approached by whoever this group of guys were. I don't know who they were. No one does. Even Leahy doesn't know who they were. They just ran up, started telling about what documents he should read. Were they intelligence? Probably. CIA? Probably. Well, these guys were conscious? I guess. And they were trying to stop a disaster, which, if you think about it, the Iraq War has plunged us into this crazy timeline we're in now where everything doesn't make sense. You know, everything's upside down. And now we're on the brink of war with Russia. You see how it trips through time, how one domino hits another. And I guess people are complaining about Leahy, you know, that he should have spoke up more. That's easy to say now, but you have to remember in that time period right after 9/11 that, you know, if you didn't toe the line, you were obviously a traitor, and you were a Taliban supporter. And the media had propagandized people's minds into conflating Iraq and Saddam Hussein and the Ba'athist Party, it's called the Ba'athist Party, with Al-Qaeda, which those two groups don't like each other at all. It's a sad fact of history that there were people trying to stop this timeline from existing.